He said I was grateful to be the speaker, and I am. And I actually so enjoyed, I was given this assignment a few weeks ago, and every day I went to my computer or set into my phone, tell me about gratitude, and something else would come up, and all sorts of people from Aristotle on have talked about it. There were a few scientific things, like Harvard did a study on people that would write a gratitude list of 3 things every day for a couple of months and how much happier they viewed themselves at the end. And Mayo Clinic has a thing now going where you can download some forms and every day write down 1 thing you're grateful for, 1 kindness you did, and 1 way in which you were mindful. And you do it for 30 days. I thought it was cool. As I speak about it, I want to say that I view gratitude for good things in the way that unfolds in our life by grace, like a serendipitous event that can seem like a miracle. The word grace in Christianity means a gift or kindness given freely by God to all humans. Gratitude is a feeling. It's a feeling of being thankful, of showing appreciation and returning kindness. As I looked at all that, I was like, well, what do I have to say about gratitude that hasn't been said or I couldn't find at this? I used to have to go to the card catalog at the library to look up something, and now I can just instantly get it. So I want to look at the events I am now grateful for, but they include not all these beautiful things I read about, but all the junk, all the difficulties, all the challenges, even some abuse. And how can one learn a lesson and become grateful? So these events I can see now push me past having to make sense just of what I saw or this physical plane, because I learned from both the joyful and the painful. And with that, I'll mention some of the life lessons I'm grateful for that I learned. And I'll start with my early years. When I was 3, I had a near-death experience after my mother smothered me. That was a long time ago, 75 years, in fact. While I was on the other side, I met a spirit, and that spirit was holding my baby sister who had died the year before. And it was so quiet, so beautiful, and I so wanted to stay in this loving place. But I was told, and this is a quote I've never forgotten, you need to go back to earth to learn to love. And just like that, I was on my bed, I was in pain. But what had happened is my mom's father was a doctor. They had been watching her a lot because she was mentally ill, and he came in and revived me. Well, I still was mad, I was angry, I was scared to death. And as that happened here on earth, all of a sudden, there was a master, I called him my turquoise master later, but some kind of spirit was right beside me with his arm on me. And he stayed with me until I was at least 9 years old. If my mother was having a fit or anything, I would see him as a blue sphere ball in the room. If it was at night, he would talk to me. He taught me how to leave my body and go up to this wonderful place. It was about the size of the Octagon building, and it had pillars, but it was open it didn't have sides, it was open to a garden. And there were wonderful teachers standing at each pillar, and I could sit down, and somehow they communicated with me. They just dropped things into my head, answers. And my grandmother had a spiritual group, and they would ask questions, and I would take the questions to the temple and come back with what I heard. And I felt so special to have these grown-ups listen to me. But the reason I felt special was I was allowed to take my shoes off and stand on the table and give the message. It was being able to stand on furniture that was special. So what I learned from that experience was I had a body, but I was not just my body. Now, they told me to come back to Earth to learn to love, but I really didn't love being on Earth for quite a while. And it took me years to want to be here. And then I understood loving others, but it took me even longer to learn to love myself and to practice kindness with myself rather than being critical. So I'm grateful to see that even the greatest perpetrators of grief are the ones that taught me the most. I'm grateful to learn that transformation is available in the here or hereafter, because that's how I forgave my mother. I imagined they could fix her, even though nobody here could. I'm grateful to have been shaken away from the survival mode I was in, and to see that there's many dimensions in life beyond this physical appearance. So what I would say to you, my minister in Atlanta had us get together with another person, and we were picking nice things, but say for 5 minutes to that person, only things you were grateful for. That's a long time, but we learned to do it. And there was a woman in my church that lived in my neighborhood, and we would get together and have coffee and decide we were only going to say grateful things. It was a nice experience. So I encourage you to think about things that seemed awful, things that hurt you, but yet they taught you to love yourself, or love to be who you are. You became resilient through them. That was maybe when you were young. As an adult, what disappointment or loss has helped you do something else or find another way? So we've lost our partner, our job, our health. There are many losses. When I was in my 30s, I lost my job. And I called my minister, Jack Boland, and I was crying like crazy. He listened to me for about 2 minutes, and he said, "Hallelujah." And he stopped me from crying. But what he had to say was, Spirit did for you what you never would have done for yourself. And that was true. I believe that job was my source of income to support my family. And that job as a designer was what I knew how to do. Well, it led me to pursue other lines of work. And I've had a much more interesting life because that one I had already mastered. So I went back to kindergarten in my mind and started over. As an adult later, I had another near-death experience. I became really ill in Toronto with viral encephalitis, and I was in the hospital. The virus had been transmitted by mosquitoes, and 8 people lived and 7 people died. And I was one of the ones that lived. And I got to see my turquoise master again. I hadn't seen him for a while. He was there in the hospital with me. And later I was home. I was in bed for at least a year. And these other 2 spheres would come and just like come into my head, or really close. One was pink and so loving, and one was a cobalt blue that was so wise. I don't know who they were. I didn't give them a name, but they would just come towards me, and it was so healing. Well, in the process of some few years of recovery, I met a woman by the name of Patty Panabianco. And she told me about a doctor she went to in Massachusetts. And my doctors around here had said there's nothing to be done. So I went up there, and she and I kept in touch to see how we were healing or how we were doing. And the miracle came. Patty and Joe and I were talking one day, and they told me about Mark and Elaine and about how there was a school they were making called the School of Healing and Prophecy. Well, I only heard the word healing, but that's what I had been praying for. So I started coming to the school, and Mark's not here, but I don't have words to express my gratitude to Elaine and to Mark and to others in school. And even for now, to be part of Fellowships of the Spirit. That was a long time ago that I started. So at the school, I focused on healing, but I was also really glad to meet other people who talked to spirit. And I was walking, I brought my dad here, and we were walking on from the stump, and he said to me, I always wondered where you came from. These mediums talk to dead people like you always have, and they talk moving their hands. I always thought that was an Italian thing to do. And my dad's name was MacNab. He was very Scottish. All right, I looked at him and I told him, yes, I found my tribe and I found my village. So these days when difficult things happen, I always say, well, okay, God, what do you have in mind now? Or what on heaven or earth is my lesson here? But those questions have kept me from being upset about things that happen. I just know there's a lesson or an answer or something down the road that'll be better. Ram Dass used to say we have a plan, and then God brings forth his plan. And I don't know if you have seen his DVD called Fierce Grace, but he says in it that he used to go around the country saying, be here now. And that's a good book that he wrote. But then he would get on the plane and go someplace else. Now that he had a stroke, he was really being here now. And he was so grateful for the fierce grace of that stroke. So I want to sum up with what I said I've learned and I'm grateful for. I'm grateful that you all gave me a chance to share the idea that sometimes the greatest perpetrators of our grief are the ones that teach us the most. I'm grateful that I learned about the many dimensions of life rather than just this physical plane of existence. I'm grateful for the people and experiences that push me past just this single point of existence. I learned how many dimensions there are to me and to you and to the earth. I'm grateful that I know nothing is as it seems. I'm grateful for the many religions I outgrew that led me to here. And I'm curious to see what I'll learn next. I'm really glad, especially with politics, that we at Fellowships don't have a dogma and think we know it all. As I close, I want to say I'm most grateful that our assignment here on earth is to love and to show it by being kind and appreciative. Thank you for the Vesper service and for letting me be the speaker tonight. Thank you.